Hi guys, and welcome back to another review. This time around I'm bringing you one of the latest IEMs from KZ, the KZ Vader Pro. I've had it for a couple of weeks now and been thoroughly listening to it so that I make sure that what I say is proper and I'm not just talking whatever comes to my mind, let's put it that way. I've got here the Vader Pro, like I said, the original Vader. I've got here the CCA Trio, I've got here the Caster Pro, and I've got here as well the Zenith. Why this selection, you might ask? Well, first of all, because the Trio makes sense, and the original Vader obviously makes sense because they are both the triple dynamic driver setup, such as the Vader Pro is using. The Caster Pro because it is the latest caster and it also has the super linear driver in it. The Zenith obviously because it's another implementation of the super linear driver, and that leads me to first say the following. Love them, hate them, whatever your opinion is with regards to KZ. I have been critical of their products, but I've always also been very positive with regards to their products when it's deserved, and the reality is it is deserved more often than what you would think, because ultimately the reality is this: they have made a concerted effort in the last, I would say, 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, to make products which are solid, and in terms of single DDs, they are out there. I mean, ever since the ZVX and then the countless other models that came after that, the EDC, the EDC Pro, the EDX, the EDX Pro in its various versions, the Saga. The reality is they have acquired enough knowledge and experience when it comes to making single DDs that they make a solid IEM. That's the reality. That also is coupled to the fact that they've had a couple of really good driver implementations that they've created, the XUN drivers, and which were available in 10, 8, and 7mm, and even 6mm, if I'm not mistaken, configurations. And of course, then the super linear driver, which has really kind of enabled them to have a very wide array of tuning options. Although, sometimes we might think, no, it's always the same thing, but there are subtle differences. Excuse me. The Caster Pro has gone from the original setup using two 8mm to using two 10mm super linear drivers. The CCA Trio used three 8mm drivers of an older generation, but the better version of those 8mm drivers. The Vader, the original Vader, was basically a copy paste of the CCA Trio. That's the reality, the same thing. The Vader Pro uses three drivers, two 8mm and the super linear. And the interesting thing is, contrary to what maybe we would have thought, this super linear is not handling the lower frequencies. It's actually the 8mm that's doing the lower frequencies, and they've taken advantage of the super linear's really good mid-range and higher frequency capabilities and implemented it there. It's using a three-way crossover network. I mean, how the frequencies are actually divided, I wasn't able to obtain a solid answer from KZ, but my suspicion is that although they are saying it's a three-way setup, which I do believe it is to a certain extent, I would say the two 8mm drivers are handling the lower frequencies, one maybe a little bit more into the sub bass area, while the other one a little bit more in the mid bass. And then the super linear, the 10mm, I think it's starting out its work at a relatively low frequency. It's not only coming in at, let's say, 1 kilohertz or something of the sort. Now, I would say the super linear driver is probably coming in at like 300 hertz. And the reality is that the way they've been able to combine and mesh the three drivers together is interesting, let's put it that way. in terms of the build quality and so on with regards to the Vader Pro, I really can't criticize it. It's a nice shell. It's got this high quality plastic with the metal faceplate. It's got the tuning switches, okay, which do change the overall bass level, let's put it that way, and then conferring the sound to be more detailed or more musical. Let's put it in that fashion. And basically the switches increment the bass or then the mid highs in 1 dB increments. It fits really nicely. I'm using the KV07 tips. I've actually got the medium sized here, but I was also using the large sized yellows, as you can see on the other IEMs. This is not the original cable, obviously. The tips that it brings are the start tips from KZ, which actually didn't do a bad job, I have to admit. And that's basically it. I mean, I can't really, there's not much more that I can say. In terms of price, it's about $25 to $30, depends on when you pick it up. But like I said, solid look, solid build, and the sound, which is what you want to know, was also an interesting surprise. All right, before I go into the sound there, I just want to talk a little bit more here on the trio, and I'll say the trio, but remember, it applies to the original Vader. The trio it came out at more or less the same time as the original caster, and it was in my opinion, is one of the most solid IEMs that KZ CCA have launched. Very nicely done, the meshing, the bringing together of those three drivers, how they are set up, if it's a three-way setup or two-way. I again cannot 100% be sure about it. For me, I think it's just a two-way setup. There's no real three-way division of the frequencies. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the truth is this, the switches allowed the trio and the Vader, the original Vader, to have a very musical, very organic, and very engaging sound. Obviously, the Vader did have the option of you having the balanced version or more Harman tuned style, which, to be honest, I think detracts from the ability and from how good the Vader and the trio can be. I think the way that the trio and the Vader are tuned in their stock format, which is with that tuck style bass, I think it's the way where you get the best out of these IEMs, and not necessarily in the Harman style tune, because the bass becomes, in my opinion, way too lean, and the IEM becomes excessively technical, and loses a lot of its musicality, a lot of its organic capabilities, which is what I think both of them shine at. They shine at being entertaining, engaging, musical, fun to listen to, and not really having any flaws that you can point at, especially when you consider the price. Comparing the trio with the original caster, which I didn't bother bringing out, I would say the trio and the Vader are better than the original caster. The Caster Pro, I have to say that my initial impressions of it, I was neither there or here. I almost at the time said that maybe the original caster was still better, and yes, it was probably still better because I hadn't really tried to different tips, and I hadn't really gone to the trouble of seeing what I could get out of the Caster Pro, and maybe jump to an initial early conclusion about it being okay, interesting, sounding good, but I think I jumped the gun a little bit with regards to Caster Pro, and the reality is, with the LO Ultra, which I tested recently, which forced me to bring out the Caster Pro and bring out a couple of other budget dual DD IEMs, I have to say that it's made me have to listen to it in a different manner and actually come to understand and come to see that it is, in fact, a very, very good IEM. And I would say that comparing it with the original trio, and or Vader, the original Vader, they share a lot of the same DNA, which is being musical, having a really engaging sound in terms of bass, mids, treble, everything done very well. And ultimately that comes down to the super linear drivers, and that's just basically it. I mean, yes, the tuning switches do enable you to tune it slightly, and again, I'm using here the base version of the Caster Pro. I don't think the Harman version is the smarter choice, although of course I do respect those that would go for it. But I think the base version is the one that really enables the Caster Pro to shine. And the issue with the Caster Pro, which I was experiencing in the initial stages, was the fact that it had a dip around 300 hertz, which was excessive, and it kind of made it with certain songs feel detached. You kind of felt that you had a subwoofer and then the rest of the frequencies coming from the second driver. But as I said, with choosing carefully the tips that I was going to be using, because I was not using initially the KB07s, choosing carefully the tips I was going to be using, choosing a source carefully, and just basically playing around with the switches and trying to find the best combination, it enabled me to find the one that does work for me, and it's the 1100, which actually ends up being the same setting as on the Trio and on the Vader, and ultimately also on the Vader Pro. And I have to say that yes, Caster Pro is a very, very solid IM. I'm looking forward to the latest version or the latest IM that KZ is launched or has launched, which is in essence a Caster Pro, but with an addition of a newly designed planar driver. But anyway, I don't want to get into that too much. That IM, I will have it shortly, and I will test it and bring it to you guys. So Caster Pro, Trio, and Vader, you can say that they are basically very similar. They overall have the same sort of vibe. I would maybe say that depending on the setting that you have on the Caster Pro, it can sometimes be a little bit more bassy than the Trio or the original Vader. Okay, come in now the Vader Pro, which is what you want to know. It's Tony, what does the Vader Pro sound like? Well, the Vader Pro, like I said, has done an interesting thing, which is they've used the 8mm drivers that we've seen here in the Trio and in the original Vader, and they've coupled it with the super linear driver. So in essence, what you're getting is the same sort of bass that you get, okay, from the Trio or from the original Vader, with the mid-range and upper mid-range and treble presentation that the super linear driver is capable of doing, and it has definitely got the most detail out of all of these, irrespective of the setting that I use. But considering the similar settings that I've done, so the 1100, which is always boosting the bass, it's definitely the most detailed. It's the one that has the most information past 10K, without any doubt. Again, like I said, it's a 10mm driver, and that super linear driver is just really very, very good. But also the way that they've matched it with the 8mm driver that's doing the bass, and allowed it to perhaps focus more on those lower frequencies, have permitted the Vader Pro to have a clean, very detailed bass presentation, which only on very few occasions did I say I wish I had just a little bit more, but that's my personal taste. Okay, so in conclusion, bass, well executed, it's clean, it's detailed, it handles everything I threw with it, no issues, no problems. Only here and there I found one or two songs that I said, okay, if I had a little bit more bass it would have been nice, but guys, it's neither here or there. It is very well tuned. That's the reality. In terms of the transition into the mids and then into the mid bass and then the mids, flawless. I can't say that there's any issue there. And then the mids, the upper mids and treble, they shine. They are really, really good. I would go as far as saying, and I mean, I know this is going to be something that maybe some of you will agree, some of you might not agree. I mean, it's basically that's always the case. I would go as far as saying that in terms of the mids, upper mids and treble, it's on the level of the Zenith, okay? And the Zenith is one of those IMs that um, doesn't get didn't get maybe the more love because of the fact that KZ initially placed it at a price point where it was starting to compete more seriously in terms of price with other more solid or more let's say established IEMs at that price point. So we're talking like Moondrop Lan, we're talking Keyfine Delchi, Keyfine Clean, other IEMs that maybe were not, or other brands that maybe are not affected as much as KZ has been over the years, because KZ, unfortunately, because of issues here and there, have created I would say a somewhat negative vibe, and people when they know it's a KZ, they automatically kind of put a cross on it without giving it its deserved attention. And the truth is, the Zenith is a really, really good IEM. Very good. I mean, it's now available. I've seen it now available just around $40, which for $40, trust me, guys, it's a solidly built IEM. It looks the part. It looks really, really good. It looks way more expensive than what it is. And when you put it into your ears, I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm being mean or disrespectful or anything, but if you listen to the Zenith and you cannot understand and appreciate what it's doing and where it's coming from, especially when you consider that the driver that's inside here is the same driver that you find in some of these other IEMs here. So it's not an expensive driver. It's not an overly, no, it's a well-designed PET diaphragm driver. Nothing out of, the ordinary that you see, but it's been well built. It's focused, it's designed where it matters, which is having a properly designed voice coil to dissipate heat, good size and good quality wire used in that same voice coil, and a strong magnetic field. That's where the secret lies, not only in IEMs in terms of the drivers, but also in speakers. What makes or breaks a speaker is its voice coil, the wire used in that voice coil, and then how it interacts with the magnetic system, okay, that it's inserted into, and it ticks the boxes. Yeah, the super linear driver ticks that boxes, and that's why it sounds as good as it sounds, and that's why you get, in my opinion at least, I got that same magic in terms of the upper mids, the mids, upper mids, and treble. I got that magic in the Vader Pro that I get in the Zenith. And honestly, when I show you the graphs, you'll understand what I'm saying. It's tuned in a very similar manner. I would say that the biggest difference between the two of them is that here on the Zenith you have a linear, a smooth, let's say, bass presentation. That's not tucked, while here you have a tuck style bass. So one has that smooth bass emphasis, bass tune, which starts from the lowest frequency, whatever it is, whatever, and then it just kind of blends into the mids and so on. While here you have that tuck style bass presentation, and that's mainly where the difference is. Which of the two, when I say that, which of the two would be the one that would be the most solid IEM of the two? Look, when you take into consideration the price of the Vader Pro, and okay, fair enough, it's not a totally fair comparison because these are three drivers doing the work of a single driver here. I'm not gonna lie, but I like the Zenith. I think the Zenith as a single DD is phenomenal, but I really like the Vader Pro. I'm really, really impressed with the Vader Pro. I'm actually using a HiFIGO cable. I mean, it could have been any of the other cables. That's not really the cable that's doing the magic. But I like the way that with tips, and I tried various tips to see. I like the way that with most of the tips that I tried, it always kind of came across the same manner, which is, at least for me, I appreciate that. So it's not going to be an IEM that you're going to have to tip roll dramatically. I would say maybe pay attention to just the source that you are using, okay? But overall, it's a easy IEM for you to like and to get a really solid audiophile, musical, organic type of sound without having to go into too much trouble of tip rolling and adjusting switches and this and that and so on and so forth. I mean, it's way easier to get the Vader Pro to sound good as it was than it is, for example, the Caster Pro Although when you get the Caster Pro sounding good, it does sound good. That's the reality. And I mean, and for $13 that this costs, I mean, come on, you know, let's be realistic. Let's not criticize what is almost impossible to be criticized. So that's it, guys. Vader Pro, like I said, you can. I've seen it. I've seen it now around $25 to $30. Solid IM. If you don't want to jump into it straight away, fine. It's understandable. Compared to its previous version, of the Vader, I would say it's a definitely an upgrade. It's a better sounding IM. It's more polished up in the mids, in the upper mids and treble. It's got that area of the frequency range better executed. Definitely more detail past 10K. But ultimately, look, guys, it's as simple as this. It all depends on how it will sit in your ears, how your ears and earphone marriage is what is going to determine how it will sound. For me, it sounded phenomenal. I have absolutely nothing to say. And compared to the two which are the most similar to it, I would say it is an upgrade. Comparing it to the Caster Pro, I say that twice the value of price is justified, although, like I said, the Caster Pro does have its magic, and yes, you are getting two super linear drivers, but this is an easier IM to get to sound properly, and also I guess especially because of the fact that you notice more that disparity between the drivers here on the Caster Pro, the base version. As compared to the Zenith, and like I said, I only brought out the Zenith because of the fact that these two, in terms of the mids, upper mids and treble, they sound very, very similar. So you know, when I was listening to songs where the bass wasn't being overemphasized, where you can notice, of course, that sometimes it's not that the bass here is lean or lacking, no, but this just has more, and it's whether you like it a little more bassy or don't like it as bassy will dictate your preference. But with songs, I mean, let me just give you an example here. Let's say, for example, in my Acros Ultima playlist that I have on the reviews that I place, if I listen to, for example, Dernier Dance from Indila, I mean, this does it incredibly well. I actually preferred it here on the Vader Pro. Hot Hands by Darius, the Vader Pro did it better. Crown Royale by Janet Harris, again, this does it a little bit better because it's got a little extra bit of more bass power. Obviously, two drivers. But there were songs like, for example, Bottom Cycle Blues by Raoul Maiden, Zenith. The Look of Love by Shelby Klein, Zenith. Hey, you can't take away the Zenith's merit. That's the reality. Guys, that's basically it. Let me just quickly show you the graphs and wrap it up. Okay, guys, so let's talk now graphs here for the Vader Pro. Okay, this is the graph of the Vader Pro using the 1100 setting, which was ultimately the setting that I used throughout all the IMs that I was using. The only one that didn't have that setting was the Zenith, which had all the switches up. So okay, actually let me show you the Zenith straight away and get that out of the way. I'm just going to change the color here to black so that there's more contrast. Okay, this is the Vader Pro, okay, and this now is the Zenith, and you can see what I was talking about. This whole area here between 500 and above, in the two of them, it's very, very similar. There's a little bit more detail up top in the case of the Vader Pro, and then the biggest difference obviously is in the way the bass is done. We have a tuck style bass on the Vader Pro. We have this smoother, linear kind of type of bass in the Zenith. But in this part of the spectrum, the similarities between the two of them is absolutely incredible. Again, yes, switches and how you set the up will have an influence. This, like, as I was saying, is the setting with the 1100. This one that I'm going to show you now is the Vader Pro, but with all the switches up. It just drops the bass a little bit, cleans it up even more. I personally don't like it as much. Why? Because that 100 hertz point there, they're like Let me just take it away here quickly. So that 100 hertz point there, you see, it corresponds to 2 kilohertz. That's how I like it. I like that 100 hertz to correspond to at least 2 kilohertz, and then the energy that's above that to be balanced with the energy that's behind. And this balance here, for me, makes the sound clean, detailed, but have enough energy to satisfy 99.5% of my demands, let's put it that way. There was maybe 3 or 4 songs that I would like just a little bit more bass. I mean, just a little bit more, honestly. So when I now take the all switches up, if you take 100 hertz, it's brought it down, okay, to 1.78 more or less, and the amount of energy that you now have above compared to what you have there is more. So there's more detail now. It's more focused to being technically capable with all the switches up. All the switches, sorry, let me take this. All the switches down, okay, and that's where I was actually. So all the switches down and the 1100 setting that I use, as you can see, it's the same. A little bit of a drop off there in the bass, but they sound basically the same, which funny enough is exactly what happens when you put the all switches up and then the 0011 setting. So in effect, you've basically just got 2 different settings. Okay, that's the reality. You just got basically 2 different settings. You either have the setting where you are boosting the bass a little bit or not boosting the bass, and then that balance that's struck between the bass and the upper mids and treble is what then dictates the type of sound, either more musical, organic, slightly warmer, or then more technical, more I'm not even say cold, but more technical. Okay, I prefer the warmer type of tonality. That's just my preference. So that's the Vader Pro. Compared to the Trio or to the original Vader, that's how they stack up against each other. Definitely more bass on the Trio, it's noticeable, okay, and although they or the Vader, and although in the mids and so on they kind of graph almost the same, you can definitely notice that the quality of the mids in the Vader Pro is more polished. It's a more it's a better quality mid-range and upper frequency presentation. True, the ultimate settings that you use on the IM will to a certain extent dictate that, but even if I bring down the bass here, which you can do on the Trio and on the original Vader with the switches, you still notice that the mids and upper mids and treble on that IM are not, they just lack the polish that the newer super linear driver has. Okay, so that's that one. Compared to the Caster Pro, also in the 1100 setting, you can see that they are very similar as well. The tuning is very similar. The biggest difference here is that because the Caster Pro is using the 10mm driver as opposed to an 8, it does have more bass. You notice that there's more bass energy, and that more bass energy does make then the second driver sound a little bit more closed down. Again, trust me, if you play around with the switches, you can lower the bass level, and if you lower the bass level, they do kind of start sounding very similar, although there's a little bit of a tonality difference in terms of the bass. And remember, one has 2 super linear drivers, which is the Caster Pro. The Vader Pro has 8mm drivers doing the bass, and you do notice a slight difference there in tonality. Which one has the better bass? Trust me, guys, either one of them has been very well tuned. So and the drivers themselves are very good. So the bass is good quality. It's then the integration with the other drivers being used in either one that dictates the flavor. Okay. And that's basically it, guys. I mean, there's really not much more that I can say. Solid IM, well built, using good quality drivers. The accessories is what it is with KZ, especially at the lower price level. And I'm not going to say to you guys, oh no, you must now get rid of what you have. And no, don't do that. I mean, at this sort of price that we're talking about, I think it's an IM that you can easily purchase and add to your collection, and then maybe after you've added it to your collection and maybe compared it to your Caster Pro if you have it, or your original Caster or your original Vader, or even the Trio, then decide if ultimately, okay, this is the one I want to keep or not. But it's I would say that it's a side grade to the others, than more than necessarily an IM that you can buy and forget about the others. Although yes, like I mentioned before, it is a more solidly capable IM when it comes to the mids, upper mids, trebles, or vocals, the way that cymbals come across, the way that guitar strings and so on and so forth come across in the Vader Pro. It's definitely noticeable that it's more polished. It's Zenith kind of presentation. All right. Guys, that's it. As always, like and subscribe. Any questions, please feel free to ask me. Take care now. Bye bye.